Today I'm going to show you the table saw attachment for the torque work centre, and in this case I'm going to use it specifically in crosscut mode. Now this gives you the ability of turning a regular circular saw into a sliding compound miter saw, but a sliding compound miter saw with a significant difference. Not only does it have a huge amount of operating range vertically, and we can adjust this the main arm right up to the top of the Z-axis, which gives us about 35 centimetres or so of easily, if not more, of clearance. And that will mean you can use the circular saw still fully supported on very large objects, or in this case I'm using it on a thick slab about 1 inch thick, and I'm going to have the ability to, instead of having to plunge the saw itself, I'm going to be plunging the whole mechanism down to and I can tell you a couple of passes because I know the saw is travelling up and down a fixed track. The other thing it gives us, and this is probably one of the biggest selling points of it, this is a sliding compound miter saw on this setup with a 900mm of crosscut range. And if I fix the longer arm on here, I can go up to 1300mm. And that is a lot of travel for something which is not being used as a circular saw. It's not being used as a handheld device, and I don't have to fix down a track, which is a good way of doing it if you don't have something like this. But once you've got the torque work centre, then you've got all this control over your tool. Now the first thing I've done is mount the saw in the saw attachment, and I've fitted it to the plunge mechanism in the crosscut mode. If I turn it around through 90 degrees, there's another point at the end here that I can fix it so I can do rip cuts. And that's obviously rip cuts the length of the table. But in this case, in crosscut mode, so that's set up. I've squared up the blade to the workpiece, and in this case I've just gone with a Wixie digital angle gauge, and I've just zeroed it off the table. Then I've placed it on my blade, and then I've set the blade to 0 as well, and that's done by loosening off the release here and obviously releasing off the end support, so then this whole mechanism can rotate, and I've rotated it down to almost exactly 90 degrees. I think I was a 0.1 of a degree out. So once the blade's all been set, and in this case, because my piece of wood is rather uneven anyway, I didn't have to worry so much about whether this was travelling exactly across the table, but I could certainly use the adjustments on the torque work centre to actually get it so it was running absolutely true, if it's not already. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm just relying on my setup that I did when I put the table together, and I'm working on the assumption that it's pretty much it's pretty much perfect anyway. I had it set up very nicely when I first assembled it. So that's that. The next thing I've done, I've clamped my piece of work down, and in this case, rather than using the horizontal clamps, the Walco clamps, I've actually gone with a couple of just a basic F clamp, in this case the Festool ones, just fitted straight through the holes, and they're just clamping this large lump of camphor laurel down on the table, so that's nice and rigid. I'll then set the plunge so that I'm actually going to do this in a couple of passes. I've fitted a pretty light saw here, so it doesn't have too much power, and it's got a pretty ordinary blade in it as well. So I'm going to take a couple of passes to cut through 1 inch slab. I could probably do it in one hit, but seeing as I don't need to worry, why not do it in a couple and give the tool a bit of a break. So I've set my full plunge, so if I plunge all the way down, obviously with the guard out of the way, that is just going to scrape the MDF of the tabletop. Now the tabletop itself is sacrificial, so if I do cut into it, that's just what it's made for, that's what it's designed for. So I've set that, and I've set my plunge depth stop here, so that I know that once I hit that full depth, I'm cutting all the way through the workpiece. So in that respect, the saw's already set up to go. The last thing I've done, obviously, is plugged it in, and in this case I've used a Velcro strap. This one comes off an original Work Centre 2000, just so that the trigger's locked on, because I've now got control over the saw from my switch here. This switch is something I've added to the torque work center, and it just means that if anything goes wrong at all and I've got my hands on the tool, I don't have to try and reach around and turn off the saw. I can just simply bump the trigger with my hip and that will turn it off. And that's a safety device I'll put onto the work center. Okay, oh, and the last thing I want to do is just bring a little bit of dust extraction in. So I can do that. And we're all ready to go. Now all I'm doing here is just cutting off, well, at one end probably about an inch or so, at the other end it's going pretty much down to 0. So I'll just put some safety equipment on, some personal protection, and then we'll do the cuts. And there we have it. I ended up choosing to do 3 passes just because I could, and there's absolutely no damage to the end from multiple steps because it's running absolutely up and down. It's running true.